Now, I've already talked about oligopolies in video 30, a video I did a long time ago, which kind of just brought up the idea of looking for industries that are trending towards oligopoly and using that as a starting point to find companies to invest in, because usually when an industry gets to an oligopoly, there's just the economics are just much better on a lot of different ways. What happens is these companies, you think about the industrial gases industry, Air Products, Praxair, Linde. When these companies consolidated from say 8 players to about 4 or 5, all of a sudden there's half as many companies going around trying to solicit bids and get business, right? It's just less competitive definitionally. Also, you have that many fewer companies, so they can look to each other and see what they do, and there's much less likelihood of, say, one company doing something aggressive like bombing pricing to try to get market share. You kind of realize that this oligopoly, they can signal their capacity additions to each other, right? Not in the sense of collusion, but they'll put out a press release, hey, we're building this factory, it's going to add this much capacity, and everybody can kind of look at everybody's press releases and easily estimate industry capacity for the next period of time. And then this helps avert sort of excess builds of capacity, which then later will affect pricing and bring a down cycle. So you tend to have just less violent market cycles as well. So and there's other things that happen too, like when there's 4 or 5 players, by definition, if they're serving the whole marketplace, they're much larger. They can hammer the suppliers to the industry more viciously, right? Get better payment terms, better working capital management. Usually they can kind of extract concessions from the suppliers and potentially extract concessions from their customers as well. So profitability gets better on both sides of the ledger. Also, cash flow tends to be better, operating cash flow across a cycle. Profitability across a cycle tends to be better. One thing I noticed with, say, Applied Materials, which is it's one of the dominant semiconductor capital equipment manufacturers. I noticed that in one of the down cycles this is post the 2000 tech crash, I think the cycle after that, they actually did not lose money during the down cycle. That was quite striking to me, because in the past, everybody lost money during semiconductor down cycles, and here's a company that they actually are profitable enough that they actually stayed profitable, not as profitable, but stayed profitable during a down cycle. And so just things get better, right? And then there's more that goes on, which is, for example, it becomes difficult to enter the marketplace typically because of regulatory barriers. And if you think about, say, the pharmaceutical industry, the regulatory barriers to this industry are what create oligopolies. It costs so much to get a drug through the FDA trial approval process that there probably never will be a major pharmaceutical, again, created from scratch on the order of, say, Bayer or Bristol or Pfizer, right? Now, this is maybe not good for the consumer, who's going to be ending up paying high drug prices, but it's very good for the investor in these companies, who gets to benefit from less violent industry cycles. Now, the pharma industry doesn't really have industry cycles, but if you think about many industries that typically have kind of cyclicality, and then you maybe think about, semiconductors are a great example, but also capital goods companies or the chemical industry or, say Deere, like the ag industry. These industries are just less cyclical than they used to be, and they are more profitable across a cycle. And so these are just things that you can kind of know that these companies are going to be very clear to the marketplace about their capacity increases, very clear about their pricing. Everyone's going to be able to see it. And there's more market power in the hands of these companies to hammer at their suppliers. And it's just better economics for everybody in this oligopoly. So again, keep this in mind. These are the kinds of the mini mechanics that can happen across these industries. And of course, if the cash flows are better across a cycle, then the company has more dividends, more money they can use to pay dividends, more money they can use to buy back shares, right? And this sort of consolidates the oligopoly. And it's sort of hard to think about how this plays out, honestly. I actually have been using a general theme that I call neo-mercantilism. When you see this oligopolization of everything, and you see kind of crisscrossing regulatory barriers from major government authorities that limit new entrants to a marketplace, and you see sort of the self-strengthening sort of tendencies of these industries, right? That makes them stronger and stronger and stronger and makes barriers to entry higher and higher. You kind of get the sense that there's a gradual oligopolization of everything. And, we saw this with the internet too. Even though there were so many zillions of companies that were in this diaspora of, or, sort of a Cambrian explosion of internet companies in the late 90s, well, look around. There's basically 5 dominant companies that are capturing the FANG stocks, that are capturing almost all the profitability, right? And so it just, even the industries that seem like they have, amazing possibilities for new companies, they still tend to consolidate. And this is just sort of, it's like a regular pattern, a regular sort of repeated pattern that you see in an ecosystem of every industry. And it benefits the investor. It's not so good for the consumer. But this is one thing to think about with you as an investor, with your own capital. You want to look for these kinds of industries and make sure that there's a good moat and a continually strengthening moat. In a lot of oligopolies, that's exactly what there is. So I just wanted to make sure that I reinforce this theme. Take a look also at video 30. And as always, thanks for watching these videos, and I hope they're helpful.